I want to talk about another little thing that they often throw out there that talks about why America produces so well. It comes down to that idea of outsourcing. Outsourcing is shifts. What they're talking about in outsourcing is sending a job that used to be done internally to someone else. What you're looking there for is if somebody else can do that job more productive than you can, send it to them. It comes back to this production possibilities. If someone can do it better, we're going to call that technology improvement. It'll shift your production possibilities out. It should be done. Now, we said in chapter 1 that the government had certain roles when it came to our economy. We're going to talk about those hows now, where the government fits in. The government is there to provide a legal framework to do business. Could you imagine doing business if there wasn't contract law? One of the most important things we have, binding law. The next, protecting the environment. Like we said before, if we just leave it up to the market, we will have pollution. So the government has a role there. There is something we call an externality. An externality is the cost or benefit borne by a third party. Meaning, someone who wasn't involved in the transaction at all, not the buyer, not the seller, some other person out here is affected by it. An example of this, in the fall, my yard will be full of leaves. I don't own any trees. Someone else, one of my neighbors, owns trees. That's their ownership. It's their resources. That's them. But I have to pay the price of picking those up. That's an externality. Another one. We'll do one on the benefit side. One of my other neighbors has a beautiful flower garden all over the front of their house. I have no part in that. I work not at all. But I get to look at that every morning and every evening. I get a benefit from their work. That's what we consider an externality. Something that you had nothing in, but you're paying a price or gaining a benefit from. The government's role is to make sure that doesn't happen. The prime example of an externality is pollution. That's where your EPA, your Clean Water Act, all those things come in. Next role for the government is protecting consumers. Here we look at things like monopolies. Monopolies can be damaging to consumers. So it's the government's role to make sure competition continues. The monopolies are not formed. Pricing strategies of companies, things like collusion, have been legalized to make sure that we have the free market forces. Advertising claims need to be accurate. You cannot lie to people. Safety instructions, very important. You not only have to tell somebody how to use a product, but how to use it safely. Product labeling, one of the biggest areas of government intervention. You need to know what's in products. This was brought on by the food allergies and medical allergies that are out there. Very, very safe. Next area we need to look at is labor. Child labor. Outlawed in this country. And actually I looked that up. 1938 was the year that went through the Supreme Court. So it hasn't been that long. I'm sure we've all heard of OSHA, workplace safety. That's taken by the government. Minimum wages are set by the government. Fringe benefits. You probably didn't know you had benefits, but you are guaranteed 3 by law. Those are Social Security, workman's comp, and unemployment insurance. So you do have some fringe benefits. Overtime provisions written into law by the government. And the right to organize to form unions is also guaranteed by the government. So the government has a role in our economy. It's how much of a role we want them to play. You know, it's striking that balance, back to that. We've got to balance market failures and government failures and try to minimize both. That's the idea behind all this. Now, that's 2 of the 3 questions. There's one more. And that's the for whom. Here the book uses a big term called a quintile. And they say that the top quintile of the U.S. population gets 50% of the production. That's true. All quintile means is 20%. The top 20% of the U.S. income gets 50% of the wealth. It seems somewhat inequity. It's an inequality there between the different groups. But if you look at it in a worldwide perspective, we're very much equitable compared to a lot of those nations. A lot of the nations are far worse than we are. But don't let that term quintile throw you. It just means a fifth of the population. All right, this was chapter 2 in a nutshell. Again, I hit the high points, not all the details, but I got a lot of them. All right, we'll go on from here to chapter 3 in your next section.